in this week's CBDNN. The theme is very much hemp this evening. I know we go on about CBD and all that, but it very much has its place in this world. So, our first topic though is essay on the global legalization rate. So, the legalization of cannabis is a hot topic worldwide. With the US leading the way, most of the world's stronger countries are among the nations that are now looking forward to legalizing this formally. With 33 states legalized in North America, guys, 33 states, I think that's more than half. Hey?
Yeah.
We are prompted to wonder what countries are next to legalize cannabis in 2021. So before you guys cheat and look at the exam results there, what countries do you guys think are legalizing next?
Sure.
I think it's Thailand or one of the Southeast Asian
Thailand.
countries.
No
Not a
way,
fucking chance.
bro.
I don't think Thailand would be
They're
the
doing a
with
full,
the last.
They're doing a full turn on cannabis.
With their
stuff.
climate though, will they be able to go for it?
Quite possibly.
Get that grown in particular areas? Because it's probably it's really humid there, isn't it?
Rainy season, like
Yeah, and
flipping
they-
so
they
much.
don't
Humidity
grow-
is
they
just
don't grow
beyond.
great weed,
Yeah.
but, like,
Thai
yeah,
sticks.
honestly.
Where's Thai? I mean, Thai sticks are, I would guess, are from Thailand. Or I don't know. I don't know where the original Thai sticks come from.
Asia.
I'm not sure.
Asia, definitely of Asia, but whereabouts?
And then the
Yeah,
Northern African
Vietnam,
countries, maybe Morocco.
So you say
Nigeria or
Thailand or Morocco or Nigeria. Where do you think's legalizing next?
I think in Africa.
You rate to Africa?
Yeah, I reckon Africa. So probably looking like at the lateral regions, because that's where I feel like also how they look at THC will be a lot different, because they'll grow it there, and at that high latitude they'll be able to mitigate the type or curtail the type of like legislation against them.
Okay.
So I don't know, maybe Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's just need the legislation and all the other infrastructure and stuff, but that's my go. That's what I think. I think Africa.
Africa.
Mm.
Dan?
If we
Same,
start
eh?
straight, Africa's definitely the up and coming place that's gonna, let it happen sooner.
Okay. Joe?
I'm just gonna, because I did a little bit of research into
Oh.
this today. So I know Morocco is busy with something. I know that Barbados they've been legal since 2019. They're trying to do something with the stock market. So instead of corporates and all the people, all the money, sort of making more money off of cannabis, they want to put it on the stock market so that the citizens can buy shares and also contribute and sort of empower themselves through the cannabis industry, which is pretty cool. So there was that. I can't remember the rest.
Okay. Do we have any more other votes in the house? Who do you guys think are legalizing next, eh?
Sure. Ricky says Morocco with a carb model only in the Rift Valley.
Yes.
They make a lot of good hash out there, so we can be thankful.
Tiago Flores also says Kenya.
Ghana?
New York is set for legalization soon.
Charles, I heard you saying Morocco there.
Yeah, Morocco I read, but only partially, only in one valley. But what's interesting is that Morocco wants to do a hub system similar to what Fields of Green have in their manifesto,
Okay.
which is the first time I see that anywhere else in the world.
That's very interesting. I think the weed world's going to get a whole lot smaller and bigger at the same time, eh? So,
Intergalactic.
the ones that came up were Mexico, Israel, but Israel's always been low-key doing weed things.
Yeah.
South Africa got a mention, as well as the Dacha couple. Jules and Myrtle got a very lovely mention in the article. We put the link in the description. And then Luxembourg, of all places, you would never think that. Brazil. I didn't hear anyone here say anything for South America. You would think everyone would be gangbusters for South America. We got Mexico and Brazil.
Sure. Okay.
And then they say there's high hopes for a bunch more, though. But other than South Africa, no other mentions of Africa. Except for Morocco.
Yeah.
Do you think
But I
we
think
have-
that info came out like literally 3 days after that first article that we were looking at.
I think with Africa, it's also about where they're at right now with what they need. So how they're gonna look at the plant, and what are the like type of like systems that are in place now that are gonna stimulate the people who are already farming. I think that's what's awesome about it as well. Is that like lots of people need employment, and it's a very labor absorbing type of industry, agriculture. So you get a lot of that type of like employment based, thing. So in other countries, maybe it's not that demand. Maybe that's not what their like economy needs. But in Africa, that's why I said Africa. It's because like it needs these certain type of things.
Well, it can make jobs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a job, and jobs is one thing that Africa needs.
Exactly.
Desperately.
And the
So-
value chain of jobs as
Yes,
well.
yeah,
So
exactly.
going
There's
all
a
the way
vertical
down.
integration up or down both ways. You've got jobs beyond.
Yeah, we spoke about this did we speak about this last week? There was something like 321,000 cannabis jobs created in the US, which was very interesting.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, but the one that made, so these are all also very, I do need to like sort of emphasize here, sort of note, these are all very sort of hemp and medical. None of these are really balls out recreational yet.
Yeah.
Morocco-ish, the one that made the most interesting news was Portugal though, because they've not just said, it's happening, they've actually set the price. They've standardized the price for medical marijuana in Portugal for something that's about 18% THC. It works out to about €10 a gram.
So they're valuing it on the THC content.
Must be production content. Maybe there's a THC limit. They don't speak about it so much in the story, but either way, they've said this is the price.
Just to give
for
an
that.
example.
Yeah,
And that's it. Oh,
that's
okay.
the price.
It's quite expensive.
Is it though? Because I've travelled
For
in
medicine, for
I've
medicine.
travelled in Europe.
Medicine. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've
that's
travelled in
expensive
Europe
for
and on
medicine.
the streets you're paying a lot more than that.
For medical in America, it's about $7 or $8 a gram.
That's much
Where the-
cheaper.
Where the recreational, you will pay about the same, $10, $15 a gram. I mean, there's guys selling eights for like $100.
Yesterday.
So it goes crazy. But yeah, it's about the going rate for Amsterdam even as well. 10 to 17 euro a gram. Easy. Yeah.
So the real reason, so this is all, I bring this up because this is all hempish, but we're going to get to the meat of the hemp thing now. This is why we've got FIVO here. There was a story that went round on High Times. Humboldt County have made quite a considerable name for itself in California, across the US, for cannabis enthusiasts as a mecca for growing and cultivating cannabis in the early days of medical legalization and even before. Everyone who knows Humboldt, guys. These are the OGs of weed growing in the USA. They say now, though, the county has made a bold move, permanently banning all outdoor cultivation of low THC hemp. So, long story short, these guys have said, we know that hemp's sort of getting through the door before everything else, but whoa, stop it. We actually don't want hemp in our area because it's going to affect our crops. So take your hemp and futsak effectively, and that's now been passed as a thing. So you're not allowed to grow hemp outdoors effectively. If you want to grow hemp, you need to go get yourself a Gavita or a Lux or whatever and grow it indoor. How much a gram for that hemp? That'll be the most expensive socks in the fucking world.
Could make one shirt
Yeah.
out of your grow.
So as a, you've done your thing. You're more learned than me by a mile regarding hemp, particularly in the Eastern Cape and that though. Is this something we need to potentially worry about locally with guys that say, whoa, I'm growing some dank here. How are we going to deal with things like this? Because this is more than just a tree hanging over your neighbor's wall now.
Yeah, I think it's very complex, like how you look at it. So if you look at it in like terms of the biophysical stuff in the Eastern Cape, and you look at wind tunnels, so basically which way the wind normally travels, then you could maybe look at like a regional type of development plan where you regionalize it. But there's been stories about hemp pollen traveling intercontinental, like 500 kilometers type of stuff. So this type of, that's why the industry it's hard to look at things super holistically because everyone needs to be on board. So I feel like cross-pollination in these type of hemp farms is something that has to be seen to whilst it's being done. So something that mustn't be done prior to the discussion that needs to happen on a national scale with people of the knowledge from the parties. So the reason why I particularly picked the Eastern Cape was based on its kind of biophysical data and its socioeconomic data. So the need for it to challenge employment, the need for it to address sustainable housing, the need for a whole bunch of things, affordable medicine, education, jobs, employment, and then the biophysical data being it's got fertile grounds. So that's the reason why I chose that area, and that's something that I obviously found in the research to be a successful avenue. So this type of like topic, like it never actually, you know, that's how like narrow-minded you can get when you do research sometimes. You get such tunnel vision on your topic. There's a huge different lateral way to think about it, like cross-pollination and what that does for people who are growing as well for their family and as well for their small businesses.
Or their cash crop, bro.
Exactly.
Because I think there's a lot of guys in the Eastern Cape who already make a buck off weed,
Yeah,
bro.
because like the Emerald Triangle, Eastern Cape's also very well known for growing
It's a
duck
huge
ranch.
part of their informal economy.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
But I mean, a hemp field next to the fields of ganja that are growing in the Transkei is not going to make much difference at the moment because they are not, as far as we all know, they don't remove males much in them fields of, say, your cash cropped ganja, where hemp, essentially, they don't want hemp in Humboldt, wherever it was.
Humboldt,
Humboldt, because of that reason, right? Because of they just don't,
They don't
let
want
it
to
grow.
bring
They
in their
want it to.
THC levels down.
There we go, and that's going to push out pollen a lot easier because you know these millions of plants. So for them it matters. For the guys in Transkei, yes, put it out there, but it's I mean, well, what's going to happen is going to water down the genetics on their side completely.
Yeah.
Basically. It'll
But who wants to
destroy
pull
it.
males on
but-
100 hectares? How you do that?
What's interesting about having males though,
Don't.
in the like ecosystem is that it provides the protein, it provides the pollen, and that helps the sustainable the overall health and immune system of bees and all different type of pollinating ecosystem agents. So that's kind of where my research looked at it. I looked at it agroecologically, so how it revitalizes the soil and bioremediates the soil. So a proposition put forth was one of the mines in the Eastern Cape extracts heavy metal soils. So if you use hemp to revitalize the soil, it just leads to that expression of the mineral in the leaf. So then you don't use that leaf for anything, use it for industrial purposes, and at the same time you rehabilitate mines for agriculture for another type of use. So, and then with the white pollen, it helps with bees. So it helps them basically have seasonal pollen, because what happens is hemp actually releases pollen at the time when other pollinating crops die. So it helps the overall stability of seasonal pollen growth. So they actually did the study in New York and Colorado, where they did the study on different agri-ecosystems and planting rows of hemp, and they found that when those pollinating crops died, hemp released its pollen, and bees were able to actually maintain better health and all different pollinating ecosystem agents. So that's like where my research was actually touched me the most, right? Like I really have a firm belief in the energy efficiency side of the projects, but knowing that by itself it's a formidable plant in the ecosystem, bioremediates, releases a lot of oxygen, stores a lot of carbon, not water demanding, these type of things, natural pesticides and stuff, and they're even doing a lot of things with terpenes, where they're isolating terpenes to be anti-mosquito spray or anti-pesticides.
That's
So
beautiful.
all of this is like showing that it's got its resilience and it's got its place, but these type of questions you bring up are for like, you really have to have everyone on board, and you need to know what you're doing as well, because like you say, watering down genetics and stuff, people aren't going to be happy, and
Or maybe
you want to have the
No, you've
ecosystem.
got some guy who's
system.
sitting trying to breed the super
then-
fire
But
something.
then are we
and-
being selfish just thinking about the sensimilia that we're trying to grow?
Are we the ones on the wrong side of the
Yeah,
fence
that's what I'm
here?
saying, yeah.
Is
Just
it
thinking
our
about
fault?
ganja to- when actually growing mass amounts of hemp
So
might be
then-
better for the environment than thinking about our small scale crops.
Depends if it gets large scale, maybe.
Yeah. With it being large scale, with what you're saying, where would be the most ideal place then to grow hemp? Because if it's going to be that way, where 500 kilometers, are you joking? I mean, that's
far.
our country could be, if you're in the centre, you can literally go 500 k's anywhere, and you could possibly reach the border.
I only drive
So
that
if
far
you
for a
Put a
holiday.
hemp field in the
Yeah.
middle of the fucking South Africa, and you grow it,
to
and
Harry
it
Smith, really.
poise both anywhere at once. We're literally going to screw the whole entire country's informal growing.
Craft cannabis
That's the
community.
people who keep
Yeah,
seed
the
for
people that
next
grow
year.
for the on the side of the road, they grow their
Yeah.
plant. Not that it's good. It's going to, like we said, it's going to water it down.
But they keep the seed for next year. So
They
now
do.
you're influencing their crop with this low THC.
Lower grade, just
lower grade.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe even a varietal that makes wispy bud for seed making. Because that's what I see now on my dischem seed. It grows this funny little calyx, and you can see it's just made for seed making.
Yeah, it's a seed plant.
So once that cross pollinates, I mean, what's that guy in the valley going to do with all of the next season's seed? He's going to have to chuck it.
That's what I'm saying. So where would the best, most ideal place in South Africa be? Something
thing
that
is
goes
it's-
off from land to offshore winds,
You'll
basically.
have to
Yeah.
work on
Something that's putting it
where
away
you
to the
grow-
Maybe
ocean.
in the Western Cape,
You'll have to grow
but
feminized.
there's already such
hemp.
competition amongst farmland there.
And now would the pollen that it's putting out. No, it doesn't. Pollen doesn't.
But
doesn't
no,
go
well,
to another-
there's-
another
It's also
plant.
the scale of hemp that you grow. I think how much pollen's released. Because if you have like a hemp farm that's built in a different type of like like it has like a demarcated zone, so in like a region, you'll have like within the sub-region, you'll have people who grow hemp for hempcrete, people who grow for bioplastics, people who grow for animal feed. So then the people who are growing, it depends at what time they're growing and how big the space is. I don't know. Depends how much pollen there's in the air. Because there's a whole bunch of other shit we don't see.
Maybe there's things. Maybe there's things that we don't even think about. Maybe there's a show for guys at like the Weed Monsanto that speak about this deeply, and maybe they're already breeding something that's got pollen like me. It runs out of puff at just 50
What are
meters.
the
That it's so
guys
thick it can only get so far.
You guys do.
Exactly.
What are they doing? Because they all also release pollen.
What?
And the other farmers that's growing these like, intellectually protected strains that's been made and other bred or made in a lab. So what are those farmers doing to control pollen?
Or who want to protect their pollen.
Because I mean, if you got one seed company and a couple of kilometers down the road, when Pete there,
Which
he's
is hemp
farming
farm.
the other seed variety, both growing millies. But I mean now, or
You've
is
not
it
con-
so entrenched in they've
cross-pollinated.
just-
Yeah.
but
They're
is it so
genetically
entrenched that they just
modified.
keep buying seed? They don't care about what's
a rabbit hole,
pollinated
bruh.
because they know they have to buy new seed. You know, that's not
Well,
the other
that's
thing.
also-
If you
yeah,
buy
that
a
can also be it.
feminized hemp seed, which is probably the silliest thing you can make, but I mean, that's one way to secure no pollen in the air. But on 1,000 hectares, who's going to walk it?
But you want the seed.
Somebody needs to
In the
invent a
hemp gang,
pollen
But this is now the
attachment
thing, yeah.
system.
Maybe you genetically modify the hemp plant so that the male plant doesn't have enough reproduction cells to actually,
Open.
like kind of copulate.
You
with
neuter it.
female. Yeah, like
Chemically
gene-
castrated.
Genetically,
No!
they do that with the
They do.
hyperaccumulator properties of the plant. So they actually genetically modify it so that it absorbs more of the heavy metals.
We're gonna do Ricky.
And that's how they genetically modify things. They minimize seed shattering as well and stuff like that. So genetic modification in plants is something that I'm
So,
sure
but
will
like,
be
do
a
we
huge
want
avenue.
Monsanto messing with the hemp? Or is it okay they can mess with the hemp as long as they leave a duck
Well,
alone?
then the Sensimilla strains aren't affected, so everyone wins in a way except maybe the plants. So maybe then that's the difference of our perspective, you know.
But
how
if
we
they
look
change
at
the
it.
plant to what you were saying, where it draws more metal out, then that's still good for the planet.
It is. It is.
Charles Internet.
It's a rabbit hole, Baz.
As long as I don't buy that dank at no rank. So before we get into our special high five guest this evening, I've got a couple of questions though that were brought up before the show. So the argument for hemp is pretty much one. Everyone's like, "Yo, we all agree on hemp." So it's like it's so moot that no one really gives a fuck in a way, you know. But how do you think hemp could be more vocal in the cannabis thing now? Because for hemp to move forward, we all need to now start moving forward. Because it's holding us all back. Hemp's got as far as it can get. There's so much more room for it, you know. But how can hemp be more vocal in this, you know? How can it participate more? I don't know. Because where's hemp? You know, everyone's saying recreational, medicinal. But the hemp thing's so passive.
I think it's catching up with the momentum. And at the same time, it's what I find is important about it and what I see as being its like connection is its intersection with socioeconomic opportunities and industrial reduced embodied energy products. So that's why in my research I focused on 4 products: hempcrete, textiles, bioplastics, and biofuel. So what I did was I looked at the carbon footprint of those specific industries. Like the construction industry is the most carbon intensive industry in our country, and that's because it has its carbon footprint in its construction phase. We were speaking about this earlier, and in its operational stage, it uses a lot of energy because it uses electricity. But if you substitute that with hempcrete, it's a carbon neutral product because it releases so much oxygen. All the carbon's off put, and then it's become something that is, you know, has reduced embodied energy. So I think the intersection of how it can address labor absorption, downstream value added chains, this whole ecosystem that can be created, this industry, with distribution, logistics, retail, marketing, like insurance, hemp insurance, all of these people can become part of the ecosystem that helps generate a lot of downstream jobs.
Exactly.
And then the environmental side of it as well. So I feel like it's vocality, how it's going to come into the mainstream, let's say, is through this kind of like intersection, right? Of how it's going to address multiple things in different areas. So yeah, that's kind of like my angle into what I think is going to make it a more like sustainable type of crop. Yeah.
And then my last sort of question about this is the thing I get the most. I meet oaks and they go hemp, hemp, hemp. And I say, yeah, man, but you know what you should do? You should just take all those Swazi pips and all these rank dank pips and grow them close together, and there's hemp already. But can you do that? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I think the difference comes in what agronomic practice you use. So if you space them far apart, if you space them close together. So that type of like how you're going to grow the plants. So if you want to grow fiber plants, you put them all close together so that they grow taller. And by being taller together, you get a longer stem that's more fiber. And then with herd, it's the same, but with seed, you want to separate them. So it's looking at like genetics as well. Like I like what your guys' manifesto says, where it's looking at it upstream, getting genetics, or downstream. I like that type of approach, right? Because that's where you say vertical and horizontal and that type of idea. So I think growing them all together is something I've actually think is like worth it, right? Growing a whole bunch of different things together, but it comes with a lot of different avenues for thought that I think I personally probably haven't been able to see yet. It comes from more experience of people in the industry that know about different things, but at the same time, you know, if you're growing it for a specific way, I think it'll suit that need. If you're growing it for another way, it'll suit that need. If you're growing it for animal feed, you can just grow it, right? Anything that it needs to be, and then like it actually helps with cattle. So there's something that they do in their isolate CBG. It helps with Staphylococcus aureus disease. That's a livestock gut health we've had a problem with. So that's another way that like it addresses so many different avenues.
And land races seem to be doing really well with levels of CBG. So it's good to just have it growing out in the fields. The cows can just eat it straight off.
Yeah, exactly. All other animals as well.
They, they just munch it.
Helps them like get better than everyone who eats meat.
I think
don't know
the
why,
cannabis
but they can do it.
community there's a little bit of a when it comes to hemp, and I do believe we need to get the fuck over ourselves.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's so disruptive, but guys, if anything, it's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, before we get on to this week's high five guest, I'm really looking forward to having him on the show. He's been with us for ages. I think he's going to help me really devil's advocate the bit out of this next story. This was a very low-key story, but it was so damn interesting. Research shows that genetically high CBD hemp plants are mostly marijuana. So what happened is these oaks did a 23andMe type thing at the College of Biological Sciences at the Bell Museum. What they effectively did is all this hemp now that's being produced for CBD, because there is an undeniable demand for this, they thought, let's actually test it. Let's see how hemp is this hemp. How much hemp do you think the CBD hemp actually is? If you were to say on a scale of dank to hemp, how much is hemp and how much is dank, Dale? In all the CBD hemp. Let's do some mathematics.
Mathematics.
Not 60 and 80, bro.
No,
42%.
yeah,
42.0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's dank or
I think
hemp?
it's dank.
Okay.
It's dank. It's all the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Growing
lankish
Growing
dank.
for
Slow grade
CBD,
dank.
you
Okay.
need the content out of the flower,
Okay.
which makes it dank to me.
FIFA, how much do you think this current hemp is hemp? Dank hemp.
I think it goes back to what the plant came from. It all came from one plant,
Yeah, it's
right?
the same.
So it has the same genetic molecular structure and stuff. It just expresses itself differently. So I think it's mostly the same because it mostly looks the same. The phenotypes of hemp and the phenotypes of like other like sativa plants or whatever look the same. Like, I mean, if you don't get a well-trained eye to go look in there, they'll be like, there's no difference, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's more closely wound than other types of trees, like, I mean, other types of like flora, like acacias and all different types of plants. They have these different like things that show it's distinct. And this one doesn't have like a little white spot or orange leaf, you know?
Different shade of variation.
Yeah, like it hasn't got an extra like wide thing going out. It seems to be the same type of plant that's growing. So that's when it comes down to, I think, like legalities and differentiation and what people want to let happen in the industry and what people don't, like the THC limit, like this type of conversation, you know, how they define hemp, how they define marijuana, but then it's both called cannabis.
But Jules would have
So-
said dacha is dacha.
Yeah.
It's
We-
the same plant.
It's
We're
the
all
same
preaching to
plant.
the choir here.
We
This is
are.
like an echo chamber. But let's not forget, hemp has always gone to great effort to say, whoa,
Yeah.
that's just my
This is
cousin.
dacha.
That's just my cousin. I'm not Saul. That's just my
It's a
cousin.
safety net for certain people. They
So
refer to hemp as like the
Yeah, what's the answer?
The soft
safe,
version.
the safe,
Yeah.
the soft form, the soft version of it.
so these guys 23 and mead the whole thing. It is 90% marijuanas.
Yeah.
Of this hemp, they saw to bring in that CBD that quickly. It's 90% bang. They've just been hempified,
Yeah.
re-hempified.
10% of it is hemp.
Yeah, it's only 10%
10%
hemp.
is on its own.
How did they separate that even? How did
Yeah,
they come
the
to
genome.
that
What
conclusion?
was
They
it?
checked out the genome and how
They
it's-
did genetic
correlates.
testing all the way down. They
That's
23 and mead it, bro. Like you send in the swab and they check your history.
Okay.
They tell you you're
Ancestry.com,
1/20th this
bro.
and that.
So there you go. You see, it is. There we go. It is what it is. I mean, you can't look at a CBD plant or a hemp plant and say that's not weed. And you can't say that it's not dank, and you can't say that it's not anything, because if it's this big, they look the fucking same. Like you're saying, there's no differential at all. So it is what it is.
Yeah, but that was
They
hella
did up
interesting.
the federal limit. Here they're referencing the 0.3%, but now the percentage is like 0.8, almost
Yeah.
1%. So this year we'll see what happens in America with the new crops coming out, because a lot of the farmers were hitting 0.8%. Growing it hot, but only at 0.8. You know, that's like double the recommended ratio. But now at least they have an option instead of just destroying. So we'll see what happens with the new regulations. But yeah, it's just, I can see it here. It says farmers running a risk of, growing a hot hemp basically. Anything above 0.3% THC.
Yeah.
I see the European Union made it 1%.
Yeah.
European
Yeah, that's part of
Industrial.
the.
Oh, one, not 0.1.
Honestly, it feels like we're all putting a lot of effort into splitting hairs with it. But that's why we're going to have Ricky Stone to talk to us about this. Please remember to vote in this week's Zol poll. Who's farming who? We're farming weed. Weed's farming us. A big thank you to our guest.